Good afternoon and welcome to Nasdaq Trade Talks. I'm your host, Jill Malandrino, Global Markets Reporter at Nasdaq. We have a special day of coverage at the market site with Pacer ETFs, VETS indexes, and military times, and our U.S. veterans now serving in the financial industry. Helping me kick off coverage is Sean O'Hara, who's the president of Pacer ETFs. And we also have Nolan, Dunn, and Jake Mauro, both of Bank of America, Merrill Lynch. Thank you very much for joining us at Market Site. And we're going to kick it off with you, Sean. Tell us about VETS and why you decided to launch this thematic ETF as a new vertical in the ESG space.
Well, we were brought the idea by the index creators, and this index sort of came from the military times. They set out on what really was a good social journey, if you will, and that is to bring awareness to hiring veterans and their needs. And they started to compile a list of companies who treated veterans well, and they had this annual survey that they developed. And then once they did that, they started to notice that those companies that actually do treat vets well actually perform really well over time. You know, some people think ESG and they think, well, I'll get lower returns, but I'll feel good. But we actually think you get higher returns and feel good here. So that was the first part of it. The second part of it was we wanted to do something at Pacer to recognize the veterans. And so in addition to building the product, we're also taking a part of our management fee, 10%, and giving that to veterans charities.
All right, so now how are the holdings weighted and how often does the ETF rebalance?
It currently rebalances once a year, and the holdings are weighted on an equal weighted basis. There's 36 names. They're all large cap, well-known names that you probably, if you saw the list, you'd say you know every single one of them. And so it sort of fits in that large cap blend box, if you will. If you're trying to figure out where you should be putting it in a portfolio, it would be large cap blend and core holdings.
Do you think the practice of ESG investing is a trend or it's an investment style that's here to stay?
I think it's definitely a trend. I read an article the other day that said there's $22 trillion invested in ESG and it's going to continue to grow. I think the challenge for ESG is finding ideas that fit whatever constraint or box that people want to put things in, and giving people the ability to kind of express their views, but also make money, because at the end of the day, that's the number one goal for any investor, is to make a profit. And so I think there's going to be a lot of developments that will be good for investors, like what we're doing with the VETS ETF.
All right, and Nolan and Jake, I'm going to kick it over to you. What skill sets did you bring from your time in the service that you now utilize in the corporate world? I'll kick it off with you, Nolan.
Yeah, thank you. Well, I think where you fit in the larger global picture for a corporate company, for a culture. So in the Army, you are trained to understand the larger picture and where you fit in, how to drive that goal home. And the same thing exists here in Bank of America. I just think that the skill I brought over was, where do I fit into Bank of America's culture and how can I drive that home every single day?
All right, and Jake, do you have a similar experience?
Yeah, I'd say certainly, your training, especially, at the middle management level in the military, you have an appreciation for understanding and planning and controlling kind of second and third order effects, like where things go, beyond once they're out of your control. So we certainly control that. But the other one I'd say is character. I mean, regardless of what role you're serving in a company, if you have that character, as many of us do coming out of the military, you just strive to do a good job, elevate the people around you up, and that has good effects no matter where you go.
All right, and can I ask you both, do you have an example of something that you might have experienced in the battlefield that you had to use those skills and apply it to a specific situation at Bank of America?
Yeah, just like the basic one in combat, make a decision, live by it, and just commit to it full throttle. Right? Once you make a decision, you evaluate, you assess, and you make the decision. I personally believe that sometimes you encounter yourself in the civilian world waiting for answers, and sometimes you got to just assume the risk, make the decision, and own it fully. So that's what I've been able to do.
All right, to wrap it up with you, Jake, were there any challenges transitioning from military life to the corporate financial life?
I think the biggest one I found is patience. I didn't consider myself a particularly impatient guy. But you want to get in there and really wrap your hands around things, and in the military and certain teams you have the ability to do that. But in a large, very nuanced industry, you have to take the time to train yourself, establish the relationships and mentorships you'll need to be successful, and just kind of remind yourself, do things in due time if you're the right person.
All right. Well, thank you very much for joining us today, and thank you very much for your service. And Sean, as always, thank you for joining me at Market Site. Thank you. I'm Jill Malandrino, Global Markets Reporter at Nasdaq.